I thought it was just another family gathering when I walked into my parents' house that Saturday evening. 30 relatives filled the living room, laughing and drinking. Then my father Richard stood up, announced I had something to give my sister Chelsea. He pointed at me, demanded I hand over my penthouse keys. Right there, right then, I refused. The room went silent. My father crossed the space between us and slapped me so hard my ears rang. I walked out, pulled my phone from my pocket, and pressed one button. 30 minutes later, a woman in a sharp business suit entered. She looked at my parents and said, "You have 5 minutes." The woman was Catherine Hayes, my real estate attorney. I had called her from my car in the driveway, and she had dropped everything to come. She stood in the center of the living room, her briefcase in hand, and the confused silence that followed was almost beautiful. My father stepped forward, his face still flushed from the confrontation. "Who are you? What is this about?" Catherine smiled professionally. "I am Damien's attorney. I am here to inform you that this property, the house you are currently standing in, belongs to my client." The room exploded. My mother Linda gasped, grabbing the back of a chair for support. My sister Chelsea screamed that I was lying, that this was some sick joke. Uncle George set his beer down hard on the coffee table. Aunt Sharon pulled out her phone like she was going to call someone to verify this madness. Catherine opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. She handed documents to my father. "These are the property records. 3 years ago, when you were facing foreclosure, Damien purchased this house. He allowed you to continue living here rent-free. You were never told because he wanted you to maintain your dignity and sense of independence." My father's hands shook as he looked at the papers. His face went from red to pale to purple. "This is impossible. We restructured our loan. The bank worked with us." "There was no restructuring," Catherine said calmly. "Your son paid off your mortgage and took title to protect the asset from your creditors. He has never asked you for rent. He has never asked you for anything. Until tonight, when he simply refused to give away his own property." I stood near the doorway, watching my family implode. I had built my tech consulting company from absolutely nothing. At 22, I started freelancing from a basement apartment, living on ramen noodles and coffee. By 28, I had a team of 15 people, and annual revenue over $2 million. I bought my penthouse at 29, a 3-bedroom place downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view that made every painful hour worth it. When I turned 30, I found out my parents were 3 months behind on their mortgage. They had taken out a second mortgage years before to pay for Chelsea's college education, which she dropped out of after 1 semester. Then a third mortgage, when my father's contracting business went under. They were drowning, too proud to ask for help, and 30 days from losing everything. So I bought the house. I paid off all the mortgages, cleared the debt, and put the title in my name. I told them the bank had restructured their loan because I knew my father would never accept charity from his son. I knew he would rather lose the house than admit he needed help. Chelsea pushed through the crowd of relatives. "You are insane. You are a controlling freak. You bought their house just to hold it over them?" "No," I said quietly. "I bought it to save them. I never mentioned it. I never used it as leverage. I asked for nothing in return." "Until now," my mother said, her voice breaking. "Until you wanted to humiliate us." I felt something crack inside my chest. "I humiliated you? I saved your home. And you just demanded I hand over my penthouse to Chelsea because she needs it more. She is 32 years old and has not held a job in 4 years. I worked 80-hour weeks to build what I have. But sure, I am the villain here." Catherine cleared her throat. "I have served notice of eviction. You have 5 days to vacate this property. My client has been more than generous. That generosity has now ended." The room erupted again. Cousins started shouting. Uncle George called me ungrateful. Aunt Sharon said I had always been strange, always too focused on money. My father stood frozen, the document still in his hands, unable to speak. My mother grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "How can you do this to us? We are your family." I pulled away gently. Family does not slap each other in front of 30 people. Family does not demand what they have not earned. I walked out into the October night. The air was cool and clean. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text messages from relatives, some supportive, asking if I was okay. Most angry, calling me heartless. I blocked the numbers and drove to my penthouse. The building was quiet. The doorman nodded at me as I entered. I took the elevator to the 18th floor and walked into my home. The city lights spread out below my windows like scattered diamonds. I poured myself a whiskey and sat on the couch, staring at nothing. I thought the worst was over. I thought standing up for myself would feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like I had detonated a bomb in the center of my life. But I was too tired to care. I finished my drink and went to bed, believing that tomorrow would be better, that my family would cool down and see reason. I had no idea the nightmare was just beginning. I woke up the next morning to 57 missed calls. My phone had been buzzing all night, but I had put it on silent. Now, in the gray morning light, I scrolled through the notifications with growing dread. The voicemail from my mother made my blood run cold. Damien, Chelsea collapsed last night. She is at St. Mary's Hospital. The doctors say it was stress from what you did. She is pregnant, 12 weeks. She was keeping it secret and now she might lose the baby. You need to come here right now. Pregnant. The word hit me like a fist. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. Whatever anger I felt toward Chelsea, I did not want her to lose a child. I did not want to be responsible for that. I threw on clothes and drove to the hospital, my mind racing. The waiting room was full when I arrived. My parents, Chelsea's friends, extended family members. They all turned to look at me when I walked in, and the hatred in their eyes was palpable. Uncle George stood up. You have some nerve showing your face here. I ignored him and approached the nurse's station. I am here to see Chelsea Morrison. I am her brother. The nurse checked her computer. She is stable, but only allowing immediate family. Are your parents here? They are, I said, gesturing to the waiting room. A doctor emerged from the back, a tall man in his 50s with gray at his temples. Dr. Marcus Powell, according to his name tag. He spoke quietly with my parents, then glanced at me. I caught fragments of the conversation. Stable condition. Monitoring closely. Emotional distress. My father turned to me, his face hard. The doctor says the stress you caused put her at risk. If she loses this baby, it is on you. I started to respond, but what could I say? That I had only defended myself? That I had only refused to give away my property? It all sounded hollow against the possibility of a lost pregnancy. I left the hospital and drove back to my penthouse in a daze. When I pulled into the parking garage, I noticed a group of people outside the building. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Then I saw the signs. Give Chelsea her home. Stop abusing your sister. Damien Morrison is a monster. I parked and took the back entrance, my stomach churning. Inside my apartment, I opened my laptop and found that Chelsea had posted my address on social media. She had written a long post about how I had stolen the penthouse from her, that it was meant to be hers, that our grandfather had left money specifically for her to buy a home, and I had taken it. It was a complete lie. Our grandfather had died 15 years ago and left $17,000, split equally among the family. But the post had been shared 4,000 times. The comments were vicious. People calling for my arrest, for my business to be boycotted, for someone to make me pay. Within 2 hours, local news vans arrived outside my building. By noon, the story was on 3 different channels. Tech millionaire Evic's parents, stresses pregnant sister into hospital. My business partner Jason called. Damien, we have a problem. 2 clients just pulled their contracts. They cited concerns about your character and the negative publicity. Those contracts were worth $300,000 combined. I felt the ground shifting beneath me. It gets worse, Jason continued. The board wants to call an emergency meeting. Some members are concerned about the company's reputation. I pinched the bridge of my nose. When? Tomorrow morning. That evening, Chelsea did a television interview from her hospital bed. She looked pale and fragile, sitting up against white pillows, her hand resting on her stomach. The interviewer, a sympathetic woman in her 40s, asked gentle questions. "How are you feeling, Chelsea?" "Scared. Tired. I just want my baby to be okay." "Tell us what happened with your brother." Chelsea's eyes filled with tears. "Damien has always resented me. Growing up, he was the smart one, the successful one. I struggled in school. I struggled to find my path. He held it against me. When our grandfather passed away, he left money for both of us to pursue our dreams. Damien used his portion to start his business. Mine was supposed to help me buy a home. But Damien convinced our parents to let him manage the money, and he used it to buy the penthouse. He said he would hold it for me until I was ready, but when I asked for it back, he refused. Every word was a lie. Every single word. But she delivered it so convincingly, with such genuine-seeming pain, that I knew no one would believe me. The interview went viral. Within hours, #SaveChelsea was trending. My company's social media pages were flooded with angry comments. My personal email was bombarded with hate mail. Someone created a petition to have me removed from the local business association. The board meeting the next morning was brutal. 8 members sat around the conference table, and I could see the decision in their faces before anyone spoke. "Damien, we appreciate everything you have built here," Jason began. "But the current situation is untenable. We think it would be best if you step down temporarily, just until this blows over." I looked around the table. These were people I had worked with for years. Some of them I considered friends, and they were abandoning me based on lies. "I built this company from nothing," I said. "You are going to throw me out because of social media?" "It is not just social media," one of the board members said. "It is client relationships. It is our reputation. We have to think about the bigger picture." I stood up. "Then think about this. If you force me out based on false allegations, you set a precedent that anyone can destroy this company with a lie." "I am sorry," Jason said, "but the vote has already been taken." I walked out of the conference room, out of the building I had leased 5 years ago, past the logo I had designed myself. Everything I had built was slipping through my fingers. Back at my penthouse, the protesters had grown from 10 to 50. Someone had thrown a brick through my window at 2 in the morning. Building management had called 3 times. The other residents were complaining. One of them had started a petition to have me removed from the building. I stood at my broken window, looking down at the crowd, and realized I was being forced out of my own home, the place I had worked so hard to earn, the sanctuary I had created. All of it was being taken from me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. My phone rang. It was Bernard Matthews, my accountant. "Don't do anything," he said. "Don't give up. Don't hand over the penthouse. I found something. Meet me tomorrow at my office." "What did you find?" "Not over the phone. Tomorrow, 10 in the morning." I agreed and hung up. I checked into a hotel that night, leaving my penthouse behind. As I lay in the unfamiliar bed, I wondered how my life had collapsed so completely in less than 48 hours. And I wondered if Bernard had found something that could save me, or if I was just delaying the inevitable. Bernard's office was in a quiet building downtown, away from the protesters and news cameras. I arrived at exactly 10 in the morning, exhausted from another sleepless night. Bernard was waiting in his conference room, documents spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. "Sit down," he said. "You need to see this." I sat, and he slid a folder across to me. "These are Chelsea's disability benefit applications. She filed 6 months ago, claiming severe anxiety that prevents her from working. She is receiving $1,100 a month from the state." I frowned. "She told everyone she cannot work." "What is the problem?" Bernard opened his laptop and turned it toward me. "This is her online boutique. She sells vintage clothing and jewelry. I tracked her sales through her connected PayPal account. She made $42,000 last year. Cash transactions, not reported to the IRS." My jaw tightened. "She is committing fraud." "Yes, but there is more." He pulled out another document. The story about your grandfather's inheritance. I pulled the estate records. Your grandfather died 15 years ago with an estate valued at $68,000. After debts and funeral expenses, $17,000 was distributed equally among family members. You each received approximately $4,000. I remember, I said. I used mine for community college tuition. Chelsea bought a car. She crashed it 6 months later driving drunk. Your parents used theirs for a vacation to Hawaii. There was no special fund for Chelsea, no money set aside for a home. She fabricated the entire story. I leaned back in my chair, processing. So the penthouse was never hers. The grandfather's money never existed the way she claimed. Correct. Bernard hesitated. But there is something else. Something worse. Your father Richard has gambling debts. $75,000 to various casinos and private lenders. Your mother Linda has $42,000 in maxed-out credit cards. They have been borrowing money from extended family members for years, claiming emergencies, never paying it back. I closed my eyes. The foreclosure I saved them from? Third mortgage from a loan shark. Interest rate of 18%. They were going to lose the house within months. They wanted the penthouse to sell it, I said slowly. To pay off their debts. That is my assessment. I took the documents and went straight to Catherine's office. She reviewed everything carefully, her expression growing more serious with each page. This is significant evidence, she said. Chelsea's fraud, the false inheritance claim, your parents' financial deception. We can use this. To do what? To prove that their claims against you are manufactured. To show a pattern of manipulation and deceit. This strengthens your position considerably. But, she looked at me carefully. But exposing Chelsea's disability fraud will not make you look sympathetic. A wealthy man taking down his unemployed pregnant sister? The optics are terrible, even if she is lying about the pregnancy. What if she is not pregnant at all? Then we need proof. Medical records. But those are protected. We would need a court order, and a judge is unlikely to grant one based on suspicion. I left Catherine's office feeling like I had ammunition but no clear shot. The evidence should have been liberating. Instead, it felt like another weight on my shoulders. That afternoon, my parents' lawyer made his move. Martin Sawyer was a name I recognized from local news. He specialized in messy family court battles, the kind where everyone ended up broke and bitter. He filed an emergency injunction to stop the eviction, claiming I was acting in retaliation. But it was the attached affidavit that made my blood run cold. In it, my parents claimed that I had made inappropriate advances toward Chelsea 5 years ago, that I had been asked to stay away from family gatherings as a result, that my current actions were revenge for being rejected. It was completely, utterly false. I had never done anything remotely inappropriate to my sister or anyone else. But the accusation was now in legal documents, filed with the court, accessible to journalists and the public. Within hours, the story evolved. I was not just heartless, I was potentially predatory. Jason called again. The board met again. They want you gone permanently. They are discussing buyout terms. I built that company, I said, my voice hollow. I know. I am sorry. The restraining order arrived by courier that evening. I could not be within 500 feet of Chelsea. I could not contact my parents directly. Violation would result in arrest. The protesters outside my building had grown to nearly 80 people by the time the evening news aired. Someone had spray-painted Monster across the front entrance of my building. The building manager called me at the hotel. Mr. Morrison, I am sorry, but the other residents have petitioned for your removal. Given the circumstances and the disruption, we think it would be best if you found alternative housing until this matter is resolved. That is my home, I said. I own that unit. I understand. But the building association has rules about conduct that affects other residents. We are not evicting you, but we are strongly encouraging you to leave voluntarily. I hung up and threw my phone across the hotel room. It hit the wall and cracked, but still worked. I picked it up and scrolled through the messages. Hateful strangers. Former friends distancing themselves. Business contacts canceling meetings. My entire life, everything I had built, was disintegrating. Every move I made to defend myself created a new crisis. Every piece of evidence I found was twisted into another weapon against me. I sat on the hotel bed and stared at my hands. They were shaking. I was 33 years old, successful and independent, and I was being destroyed by my own family. Not because I had done anything wrong, but because I had dared to say no. The hotel room was silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. Outside, the city continued as if nothing was wrong. People went to dinner. They laughed with friends. They went home to families that loved them. I had none of that. I had money in the bank and a law degree's worth of legal documents, but I was completely alone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your Penthouse security camera. Now. I opened the app that connected to my home security system. The camera in the living room showed my parents and Chelsea inside my penthouse. They were moving furniture, going through my belongings, making themselves at home in my space. I called building security. They are in my apartment. How did they get in? They had a key, sir. They said you gave them permission. We called the police, but they said it is a civil matter since they are family. Get them out. Now. We cannot forcibly remove them without a police order. And given the restraining order against you, the officers were hesitant to intervene. I called Catherine. She listened to the situation and sighed. I will file emergency motions first thing in the morning. But Damien, the courts are backed up. It could take 3 weeks to get a hearing. 3 weeks? I am sorry. Without evidence of immediate danger or destruction of property, judges prioritize other cases. I watched on my phone as Chelsea took a photo of herself in my living room and posted it online. Finally home, the caption read. The likes and supportive comments poured in. Strangers congratulating her. People saying she deserved it, that I had been hoarding resources while she struggled. I turned off my phone and lay back on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling. The cracks in the plaster looked like a map of somewhere I did not want to go. The hearing was set for 3 weeks out. 21 days of watching my life unravel while my family lived in my home. The first week, I tried to maintain normalcy. I went to the office, even though I had been officially removed as CEO. Jason had taken over, and he avoided making eye contact when we passed in the hallways. The staff treated me like a ghost, present but not acknowledged. On day 4, I was informed that my company email had been deactivated. On day 6, my access card stopped working. On day 8, security asked me to leave the building. You do not work here anymore, the guard said. Not unkindly, but firmly. I built this place, I said. I know, sir, but I have my orders. I drove back to the hotel in the middle of the afternoon. The protesters had followed me there somehow. 3 people with signs stood in the parking lot. One of them recognized my car and started filming me with her phone. The hotel manager called me that evening. Mr. Morrison, we have received complaints. We would appreciate it if you found other accommodations. I packed my belongings and checked into a motel on the outskirts of the city. The kind of place with thin walls and a flickering neon sign. I paid cash for a week and sat on the sagging mattress, looking at my reflection in the mirror above the dresser. I did not recognize the man looking back. Catherine filed motion after motion, but they were all delayed. Continuances. Procedural issues. Martin Sawyer, my parents' lawyer, seemed to know every trick to slow the process. Meanwhile, my legal fees were mounting. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. I had savings, significant savings, but lawyers were expensive, and with my income cut off from the company, I was burning through reserves. On day 12, I received notice of an IRS audit. Someone had filed an anonymous tip claiming I had unreported income. It was baseless, but it meant my business accounts were frozen pending investigation. I could not access the money I needed to pay my legal team. Bernard called me. This is deliberate. Someone who knows your financial situation triggered this audit to lock you up. My parents, I said. Probably. But we cannot prove it. Chelsea continued posting from my penthouse. She redecorated my bedroom, painting the walls a garish yellow. She threw away my MIT diploma, posting a photo of it in the trash with the caption, "Out with the toxic." She invited friends over for parties. The security cameras showed strangers in my home, drinking my liquor, sitting on my furniture. One night, someone spray-painted graffiti on my bedroom wall. Chelsea filmed it and laughed. I reported it to the police. They took a report and did nothing. I tried calling old friends. Most did not answer. The ones who did were awkward and brief. They had seen the news. They had heard the allegations. They did not know what to believe, but they were not willing to risk association with me. My gym canceled my membership. The country club suspended me pending investigation of character complaints. Even my barber refused to schedule an appointment. Too much drama, man. Sorry. On day 15, Uncle George posted on social media. I always thought there was something off about Damien. Too focused on money. Too cold. Now we know why. Aunt Sharon shared it with her own comment. Some people are just broken inside. We never really knew him. Cousins I had grown up with unfriended me on every platform. People I had helped financially in the past now claimed they had always felt uncomfortable around me. The isolation was suffocating. I spent my days in the motel room, watching legal documents pile up on the small desk, waiting for a hearing date that kept getting pushed back. On day 17, Chelsea announced her baby shower. She posted a registry online, listing my penthouse address. People sent gifts, strangers congratulating her on her new home and her pregnancy. I sat in the motel room and realized that I had lost everything. My home, my company, my reputation, my family, my friends. Everything I had built over a decade was gone, taken by people who had contributed nothing. I considered leaving, just packing up and moving to another state, starting over somewhere no one knew my name. It would be easier than fighting. But then I thought about Chelsea in my home, throwing parties and pretending she had earned it. I thought about my parents living off my generosity while destroying my life. I thought about every person who had believed their lies without asking for my side of the story. And I realized that running would mean they won. That they would keep the penthouse, keep their victim narrative, and probably move on to scamming other people. On day 19, I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "I know what they did." The message was brief. I am a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. I saw Chelsea's story on the news. I cannot legally share medical information, but I can tell you that sometimes the truth is in the details. Request her medical records through your lawyer. Look closely at the emergency room visit from the night she claimed to have pregnancy complications. The email had no signature, no return address, just those few sentences. I forwarded it to Catherine. She called me within an hour. I can subpoena her medical records, but it will take time. And if we are wrong, if she really is pregnant, this will make you look even worse. Do it, I said. I need to know the truth. The subpoena was filed on day 20. We were 3 days from the hearing, and I was living on hope and borrowed time. That night, my mother called from a number I did not recognize. Her voice was shaking. "Damien, you need to come to the house. Right now. Alone. Please. Do not tell anyone. What is this about? Just come. I am begging you. Your father will kill me if he finds out I called." Catherine had warned me against meeting with them privately. But something in my mother's voice was different. Not the manipulative crying from before. This was genuine fear. Against my better judgment, I drove to the house that still legally belonged to me. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Her face was pale, and there was a bruise on her left arm, dark purple against her skin. She pulled me inside and locked the door. We went to the kitchen, and she poured herself a glass of water with shaking hands. "I made a terrible mistake," she said. "I am so sorry. I did not know it would go this far." "What are you talking about?" "Your father's gambling debts. They are real, but they are worse than you know. He owes $250,000. Not to casinos, to people who hurt you if you do not pay. Dangerous people." I felt cold. "Go on." "He made a deal with Chelsea. If they could get your penthouse, they would sell it and split the money. Half for his debts, half for Chelsea to disappear somewhere and start over. She is a gambling addict too, Damien. Has been for years. She owes money all over the city. My mother started crying. The slap at the party was planned. They wanted to provoke you in front of everyone so you would look like the bad guy when they took legal action. The pregnancy was Chelsea's idea. She thought it would make her more sympathetic. How long have you known? From the beginning. I went along with it because Richard said if I did not, he would hurt me. He has been getting violent. The bruise, she gestured to her arm. This is from 2 nights ago when I suggested we drop everything and just apologize to you. I stared at her. You enabled them. You helped them destroy my life. I know. I am a coward. I am a terrible mother. But I am telling you now because it has to stop. They are planning something worse. I do not know what. But Richard and Chelsea are meeting with that lawyer tomorrow. They are going to do something at the hearing to make sure you lose everything. What do you want from me? Forgiveness. Understanding. I do not know. She covered her face with her hands. I just wanted you to know the truth, before it is too late. I stood up to leave, and that is when I heard the front door open. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. My father's voice calling out, Linda? Who is here? My mother's eyes went wide with panic. She grabbed my arm. Please, just go. Go now. But it was too late. My father and Chelsea appeared in the kitchen doorway. My father's face twisted with rage. Chelsea smiled slowly, pulling out her phone. Thanks for the confession, Mom, Chelsea said. She held up her phone, showing a recording app. We have been recording for the last 5 minutes. My stomach dropped. Richard stepped forward. You have a choice, Damien. You drop all the charges, all the eviction proceedings, all the legal action. You sign over the penthouse to Chelsea tomorrow, or we release this recording, and your mother goes to prison for conspiracy and fraud. She is a victim, I said. She is an accomplice, Richard corrected. She admitted to knowing about the plan from the beginning. She admitted to helping us. That is conspiracy in the eyes of the law. Chelsea waved her phone. We will be very sad to do it, but we will, unless you give us what we want. I looked at my mother. She was crying silently, her face buried in her hands. The bruise on her arm was real. The fear in her eyes was real. But so was her complicity. She had stood by while they destroyed me. I will think about it, I said, my voice flat. You have until tomorrow morning, Richard said. 9 a.m. Decide whether you want to save your mother or your pride. I walked out of the house and sat in my car for a long time, my head against the steering wheel. They had trapped me perfectly. If I fought back, my mother went to prison. If I gave in, I lost everything and they won. The motel room felt smaller when I returned. The walls seemed to close in. I lay on the bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling, trying to find a way out of the trap. My phone buzzed with a text from Bernard. Call me. Emergency. I called, and he answered on the first ring. I found something, he said. Something big. Meet me at my office first thing in the morning, 6 a.m., before anyone else is awake. What is it? Not over the phone. Just come. I did not sleep that night. I watched the hours tick by on the digital clock, red numbers glowing in the darkness. At 5:30, I got dressed and drove through the empty streets to Bernard's office. He was waiting with his laptop open and papers spread across his desk. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. The gambling debts, he said without preamble. I traced the payments. They are going to offshore accounts. So, I dug deeper. The offshore accounts are connected to shell companies. The shell companies are owned by Richard and Chelsea. I leaned forward. What are you saying? I am saying there are no loan sharks. There are no dangerous people. Your father and Chelsea have been embezzling money from your extended family for years. Uncle George gave them $50,000 to help with debts. Aunt Sharon gave them $30,000. Various cousins and friends contributed over $200,000 total over the past 3 years. None of it went to debts. It went into their personal accounts. They have been running a con, I said slowly. Yes, and there is more. I pulled Richard's financial records. He has $487,000 hidden in offshore accounts. Chelsea has $293,000. They are not desperate. They are greedy. The penthouse is worth $2.3 million, I said. They want to sell it, take the money, and probably disappear. That is my assessment. Bernard pulled up more documents. And your mother? I checked her finances too. She has been transferring money to the same accounts. Smaller amounts, but consistently. $50 here, 100 there. She is not a victim, Damien. She is a partner. The bruise? Could be makeup. Could be self-inflicted. Could be real, but not from your father. I cannot tell you that. But I can tell you she is not innocent in this. I sat back, processing. What about the pregnancy? I cannot get medical records without a court order. But Catherine should have that subpoena processed today. We will know soon. I left Bernard's office as the sun was rising. The hearing was in 3 days. I had evidence that could destroy my family completely, but using it meant exposing everything publicly. It meant watching my mother arrested alongside my father and sister. Part of me, the part that remembered Sunday dinners and birthday cakes, wanted to give them one more chance, wanted to believe there was still something worth saving. But a larger part, the part that had been beaten down and humiliated and lied about for 3 weeks, knew the truth. Some people show you who they are, and when they do, you have to believe them. Catherine called me at 8 in the morning. We have Chelsea's medical records. And? She was never pregnant. She went to the emergency room claiming cramping and bleeding. They ran a pregnancy test. Negative. The doctor noted that the patient insists she is pregnant, despite the negative test, and recommended a psychiatric evaluation. Chelsea refused and left the hospital. I closed my eyes. She lied about everything. Yes. But there is more. She went to a different hospital the next day. Different doctor, more sympathetic. That doctor gave her a note excusing her from stress, without confirming the pregnancy. Chelsea has been using that note as proof, but there is no actual medical confirmation she was ever pregnant. Can we use this in court? Absolutely. This changes everything. We can prove fraud, false allegations, emotional manipulation. Combined with Bernard's financial evidence, we have a solid case. File everything, I said. All of it. I am done playing defense. Over the next 2 days, Catherine and Bernard worked around the clock. They compiled evidence of the embezzlement, the fake pregnancy, the disability fraud, the lies about the grandfather's inheritance. They found video footage from the night of the party, showing my father and Chelsea conferring in the corner minutes before the confrontation. They found text messages between Chelsea and my father discussing the plan. They even found the original bruise makeup tutorial my mother had watched on YouTube 2 days before her tearful confession. It was all fake. All of it. On the morning of the hearing, I arrived early. The courthouse was busy with people coming and going, lawyers in suits carrying briefcases, families waiting nervously on benches. Catherine met me in the hallway. Are you ready for this? I nodded. Let them come. The courtroom filled slowly. Extended family members took seats in the gallery. Uncle George and Aunt Sharon sat together, whispering. Cousins I had not seen in years showed up, probably hoping to watch me lose. Then my parents and Chelsea arrived with Martin Sawyer. My father looked confident, his shoulders back. Chelsea wore a loose dress that suggested pregnancy, her hand resting on her stomach protectively. My mother followed behind them, looking smaller somehow. They took their seats at the plaintiff's table. I sat with Catherine at the defense table. The distance between us was maybe 15 feet, but it felt like miles. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, and we all stood. She was a woman in her late 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that suggested she had seen every trick in the book. Be seated, she said. Let us proceed. Martin Sawyer stood first, giving an impassioned speech about family values and my alleged cruelty. He painted a picture of a heartless son who had turned his back on his struggling parents, who had caused a pregnant woman to miscarry through his callous behavior. Chelsea cried on cue. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. When Sawyer finished, Judge Morrison turned to Catherine. Your response, counselor? Catherine stood, and I saw the shift in her demeanor. This was not just a lawyer doing a job. This was someone who believed in what she was arguing. Your Honor, we will demonstrate that the plaintiffs have engaged in a systematic campaign of fraud, embezzlement, and defamation against my client. We have medical records, financial documents, and video evidence that will prove their claims are entirely fabricated. She started with the medical records. A doctor from St. Mary's Hospital was on standby via video conference. He confirmed that Chelsea had tested negative for pregnancy and had been advised to seek psychiatric help for her insistence otherwise. Chelsea's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Catherine presented the financial documents next. Bernard testified about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the embezzled money from extended family members. As he spoke, I watched Uncle George's face turn red. Aunt Sharon's mouth fell open. "You gave them $50,000? Aunt Sharon hissed at Uncle George. "They said they needed it for medical bills," he hissed back. Catherine played the video from the night of the party. It clearly showed my father and Chelsea discussing something in the corner, their body language conspiratorial. Then the confrontation, which looked different when you knew it was planned. She presented evidence of my mother's financial transfers to the offshore accounts. The YouTube tutorial on creating realistic bruises. Text messages between my parents discussing how to get me to crack. The courtroom was silent, except for the rustling of papers and the occasional gasp from the gallery. My father tried to object, but his lawyer advised him to stay quiet. Chelsea was crying, but it was different now. Not sympathetic tears, but the tears of someone watching their plans fall apart. "Your Honor," Catherine said, producing one final piece of evidence. "This is video footage from 3 months ago. My client's former business partner, Jason Walker, recorded this meeting." She played the video. It showed Jason sitting across from my father and Chelsea in a coffee shop. They were offering him money to sabotage my company, to create problems with clients, to manipulate the board against me. Jason had recorded it all. Judge Morrison's expression had grown progressively darker. She turned to my parents. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" My father stood. "Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. Our son has twisted everything to make himself look like the victim." "Mr. Morrison, the medical records are clear. Your daughter was not pregnant. The financial records show systematic fraud. The video evidence shows premeditation. I am not inclined to believe this is a misunderstanding." She turned to Chelsea. "Miss Morrison, do you maintain that you were pregnant?" Chelsea looked at her lawyer. He shook his head slightly. She slumped in her chair. "No, Your Honor." "So you lied under oath in your initial filings?" Chelsea did not answer. Judge Morrison made notes on her pad. "I am ordering the immediate return of the Penthouse to Damian Morrison. I am awarding him $2.7 million in damages for fraud, defamation, and emotional distress. I am referring this case to the district attorney for criminal investigation into the embezzlement and fraud claims. This court is adjourned." The gavel came down, and the room erupted. Uncle George stood up, shouting at my father. Aunt Sharon was crying. Cousins were arguing with each other. Security had to intervene to keep order. I walked out of the courtroom with Catherine, my legs feeling weak. We made it to the hallway before I had to sit down on a bench. "It is over," Catherine said gently. "You won." But I did not feel like I had won anything. I felt empty. Over the next week, things moved quickly. My parents were arrested. Chelsea was charged with fraud and filed a plea deal. Probation and full restitution. My father got 18 months in prison for embezzlement. My mother got house arrest and probation for her role in the scheme. I went to the Penthouse with a locksmith. When we opened the door, I saw what they had done. Furniture broken. Walls painted over. My personal belongings destroyed or stolen. The place I had loved was a crime scene, but it was still mine. Uncle George and Aunt Sharon came to see me a few days later. "We are so sorry," Uncle George said. "We should have listened to you." "We believed them because they are family," Aunt Sharon added. "But you are family too. We forgot that." I accepted their apologies but kept my distance. Trust, once broken, does not heal quickly. Jason helped me regain control of the company. The board apologized and reinstated me as CEO. Clients slowly came back as the truth spread. The local news ran a follow-up story. Local CEO vindicated after family fraud exposed. But the damage was done. I had lost 3 weeks of my life. hundreds of thousands of dollars. And my faith in the concept of family, I changed the locks on the penthouse and spent a weekend cleaning out the mess. Every broken picture frame, every ruined piece of furniture was a reminder of what they had done. When I finally stood on my balcony, looking out at the city, I felt something shift inside me. Not happiness, not satisfaction, just a quiet acceptance. I had stood up for myself. I had fought back. And I had survived. That had to be enough. 2 weeks after the hearing, I still could not sleep. I would lie awake at night, replaying conversations in my head, looking for the moment when everything went wrong, trying to understand how the people who raised me could have been so cruel. Bernard called one evening. "I need you to look at something." "What is it?" "Those gambling debts your father claimed to have. I have been going over the numbers, and something does not add up." I met him at his office the next morning. He had spreadsheets covering his entire desk. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a column of numbers. "These are the payments Richard claimed he was making to loan sharks. $2,000 a month for the past 3 years. Okay, but these payments were going to an account in the Cayman Islands. I traced it. The account is owned by a shell company called Morrison Holdings, LLC. Want to guess who owns Morrison Holdings? Richard. Bingo. And Chelsea is listed as co-owner. I sat down heavily. They were not paying off debts. They were paying themselves. Exactly. Bernard pulled up more documents. I went back 5 years. They have been running this scam on your extended family for at least that long. Uncle George told me he gave them money 4 different times. 50,000 total. Aunt Sharon gave them 35,000 over 3 years. Your cousin David gave them 15,000 for a supposed medical emergency. How much total? As far as I can track, $412,000 from family members. All of it supposedly for emergencies, debts, medical bills. None of it true. Where is the money now? Richard has approximately $487,000 in various accounts. Chelsea has $293,000. Linda has about $68,000 in an account Richard probably does not know about. My mother has her own stash? Yes. She has been skimming from the family scam. Not a victim at all. The betrayal felt fresh all over again. Every time I thought I understood the depth of their deception, another layer revealed itself. That is not even the worst part, Bernard continued. He opened his laptop and turned it toward me. This is a real estate listing from 6 months ago. Luxury condo in Costa Rica. 2 bedrooms, ocean view. Want to guess who put a deposit down? I stared at the screen. The buyer was listed as Morrison Family Trust. My father and Chelsea were named as trustees. They were going to take the money and run. That was always the plan. Sell your penthouse, add that $2.3 million to what they already had, disappear to a country with no extradition treaty. I leaned back and laughed. It was not a happy sound. They planned this for months, maybe years. The pieces fit together. They waited until I was established, successful, wealthy. Then they engineered the confrontation, knowing I would defend myself, knowing I would look like the bad guy. And if they had succeeded, I would have lost everything while they lived in paradise. Bernard closed the laptop. What do you want to do with this information? I do not know yet. That night, I got a call from Jason. You need to see something. Check your email. I opened my laptop and found a video file. When I played it, I saw Jason sitting across a table from my father and Chelsea. The video was time-stamped 3 months before the party. We need someone on the inside, my father was saying. Someone who can make things difficult for Damien. Create problems with clients. Make the board question his leadership. Jason's voice. Why would I do that? Chelsea leaned forward. $50,000. Cash. And when he is out, you are in control. You have wanted that for years. We both know it. Jason looked uncomfortable on the video. I do not know. 75,000, my father said. Final offer. In the video, Jason nodded slowly. Okay. What do you need me to do? The video ended. A moment later, Jason called. I recorded that as insurance, he said. I was going to do it. I'm not going to lie to you. I wanted control of the company, and they offered me the way to get it. But after I saw what they did to you, how they destroyed you publicly, I could not go through with it. You still waited weeks to come forward, I said. I know. I am a coward. But I am giving you this now, because you deserve to know the whole truth. They planned everything, Damien. Down to the last detail. I watched the video 3 more times. Each viewing made me angrier. They had recruited people I trusted, turned them against me with money, created a conspiracy that almost succeeded. The hearing was supposed to be the end, but it was not. My father and Chelsea had one more move planned. I did not know what it was, but I could feel it coming. The next day, Martin Sawyer filed an emergency motion. He claimed that new evidence had come to light proving I had threatened my family. He wanted the judgment reversed, and the penthouse given to Chelsea immediately. Catherine called me. This is nonsense. What new evidence could they possibly have? I have no idea. The hearing was scheduled for the following morning. Emergency motion, accelerated timeline. Judge Morrison was not pleased at being dragged back into this case. In the courtroom, Martin Sawyer presented his evidence. It was a recorded phone call between me and my mother. In it, I supposedly threatened to have her arrested if she did not support my version of events. I listened to the recording and felt ice in my veins. It was not me. Someone had used AI to fake my voice. Your Honor, Catherine said immediately, this is clearly fabricated. We can prove it with voice analysis. That takes time, Sawyer argued. My clients are living in fear. They need protection now. Judge Morrison looked between us. I will order a voice analysis. Until then, the original judgment stands. Sawyer tried to object, but the judge was done. Court adjourned. As I left the courthouse, a reporter shoved a microphone in my face. Mr. Morrison, how do you respond to allegations that you threatened your family? I walked past without answering, but the story made the evening news. The narrative was shifting again. Tech CEO threatens family. That night, I sat in my penthouse and realized they would never stop. Even from prison, my father was finding ways to attack me. Even after losing everything, Chelsea was inventing new lies. I pulled out my phone and looked at the evidence we had compiled. The financial documents, the fake pregnancy records, the embezzlement proof, the video of Jason's recruitment. We had enough to destroy them completely, but I had held back. Some part of me still did not want to be the person who sent his parents to prison, who exposed every family secret, who burned everything to the ground. That part of me was tired. My phone buzzed. A text from Chelsea, somehow, despite the restraining order. You are going to lose. We always win. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I called Catherine. File everything. Every piece of evidence we have. I want the district attorney to see all of it. I want criminal charges for everyone involved. Damien, are you sure? I am done being merciful. They mistake it for weakness. They will never stop unless someone stops them. There was a pause. Okay. I will start the process tomorrow. No, I said. Tonight. Start tonight. She hesitated, then agreed. I hung up and stood at my window, looking out at the city. Tomorrow, the war would escalate. Tomorrow, my family would face real consequences. Tomorrow, I would stop defending and start attacking. But tonight, I had one moment of peace. One moment before everything changed forever. I poured myself a drink and raised the glass to the empty room. Here is to truth, I said aloud. Even when it destroys everything. The final hearing was set for 8 in the morning. Catherine had filed every piece of evidence with the district attorney. Criminal investigators had spent the weekend reviewing the case. Now, they were ready to proceed. I arrived at the courthouse at 7:30. The building was already busy with lawyers and defendants, the machinery of justice grinding through its daily routine. Catherine met me in the hallway. Are you ready? As ready as I will ever be. The courtroom filled quickly. My extended family took their usual seats. Uncle George and Aunt Sharon sat together, supportive now. Several cousins had come to witness the final chapter. Even some former co-workers showed up, curious about how this story would end. My parents and Chelsea entered with Martin Sawyer. My father looked older, his confidence worn down by 2 weeks in jail awaiting trial. Chelsea avoided eye contact with everyone. My mother walked slowly, as if each step required enormous effort. Judge Morrison entered, and we rose. She sat, gestured for us to do the same, and reviewed her notes. We are here for final resolution of Morrison versus Morrison, and also to address criminal charges referred by this court. Let us proceed. The district attorney stood. A young woman named Sarah Chen, who had built her reputation on white-collar crime cases. She presented the evidence methodically, starting with the medical records that proved Chelsea's pregnancy was fabricated. Miss Morrison went to 2 different hospitals claiming pregnancy complications. Both times, tests came back negative. Yet she continued to claim pregnancy publicly, used it to gain sympathy, and leveraged it to make false accusations against her brother. This is fraud, Your Honor. She moved to the financial evidence. Bernard was called to testify again. He walked through the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the systematic embezzlement from family members over 5 years. Uncle George stood up in the gallery. That money was supposed to help them with medical bills. They said Linda needed surgery. There was no surgery, Bernard said gently. The money went directly to personal accounts. Aunt Sharon was crying. We trusted them. They are family, the prosecutor continued, presenting the video of Jason's recruitment. Jason himself testified, explaining how he had been offered $75,000 to sabotage my company. Why did you agree? The prosecutor asked. Jason looked at me. Because I wanted what he had built. I was jealous. They offered me a shortcut, and I took it. I regret it deeply. The judge made notes. Mr. Walker, you realize you may face charges as well? Yes, Your Honor. I am prepared to accept the consequences of my actions. The prosecutor then addressed the fake voice recording. A forensic audio expert testified that the recording had been created using AI software, easily detectable through analysis. It was a crude attempt at deception. Martin Sawyer tried to defend his clients, but every argument fell flat. The evidence was overwhelming. There was no room for reasonable doubt. Finally, the prosecutor called my mother to the stand. Mrs. Morrison, you claim to be a victim of your husband's scheme, but we have evidence of your participation. Can you explain these financial transfers to the offshore accounts? My mother looked small in the witness chair. I was trying to protect myself. Richard said if I did not help, he would leave me with nothing. So you knowingly participated in defrauding your extended family? She did not answer. You helped fabricate claims against your son? Silence. You created fake evidence, including a staged bruise, to manipulate him? My mother finally spoke. I did what I had to do to survive. The prosecutor turned to the judge. Your Honor, this was not a case of one family member victimizing others. This was a coordinated conspiracy involving all 3 plaintiffs. They planned for months, possibly years. They manufactured evidence, made false allegations, committed fraud, and destroyed the defendant's reputation and livelihood. The people deserve justice. Judge Morrison reviewed her notes one more time. Then she looked at my parents and Chelsea. I have been a judge for 23 years. I have seen many family disputes. But the level of premeditation and malice in this case is extraordinary. You did not just hurt your son financially. You attempted to destroy him completely. You weaponized the legal system, public opinion, and family relationships to steal from him. She turned to Chelsea. Miss Morrison, you are charged with fraud, filing false police reports, and perjury. Given your plea agreement and cooperation, I sentence you to 3 years probation, community service, and full restitution to your brother and to the family members you defrauded. You will also be registered as having committed disability fraud, which will affect your future eligibility for government assistance. Chelsea nodded, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Morrison, Judge Morrison addressed my father. You are the architect of this scheme. You recruited others. You planned the confrontation. You created the false narrative. I sentence you to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years probation. You will make full restitution, and you are barred from contacting your son for a period of 10 years. My father's face turned red, but he said nothing. Mrs. Morrison, you were not the mastermind, but you were a willing participant. You received 12 months house arrest, 3 years probation, and you must also make restitution. You are also barred from contact with your son. My mother lowered her head. Judge Morrison turned to me. Mr. Morrison, I want to say something to you directly. You did nothing wrong. You earned what you built. You had every right to defend yourself and your property. That your family attempted to destroy you for doing so is unconscionable. I hope you can rebuild your life and find peace. Thank you, Your Honor, I managed to say. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. In the hallway, Uncle George approached me. I am sorry we doubted you. We will pay back what we can, even though you are getting restitution. You do not have to do that, I said. We do. We should have asked questions. Should have listened to both sides. We let them manipulate us. Aunt Sharon hugged me. You are a good man, Damien. I am sorry we forgot that. Over the next weeks, the pieces of my life slowly came back together. Jason stepped down from the company, and I resumed full control. The board members who had pushed me out apologized. Some resigned. I accepted their apologies but restructured the board to prevent it from happening again. Clients returned as the truth spread. The local business community reached out with support. The country club reinstated my membership. Even my gym called to apologize. But the penthouse was still a disaster. I hired contractors to repair the damage. The walls were repainted, the furniture replaced. I brought in a designer to help make it feel like home again. One evening, about 6 weeks after the final hearing, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset. The city spread out below me, lights beginning to twinkle as darkness fell. Bernard had been promoted to CFO of my company. Catherine joined our board of directors. Jason had left to start his own business, and I wished him well despite everything. Angela Torres, the nurse who had sent me the anonymous tip about Chelsea's medical records, I tracked down and offered her a job running a new charitable foundation I was starting. What kind of foundation? She asked. One that helps people escape abusive family situations. People who are trapped by obligation and guilt. People who need support to stand up for themselves. She accepted. My extended family tried to rebuild relationships with me. Uncle George and Aunt Sharon hosted a gathering and invited me. I went, cautiously. It was awkward at first, but slowly, conversation flowed. People apologized. People asked about my life. People treated me like family again. But I noticed who was missing. My parents, Chelsea. The 3 people who should have been there were gone, and the space they left was both painful and peaceful. One of my younger cousins, Emily, pulled me aside. Thank you for standing up to them. My mom told me what really happened. They tried to get money from us too, but we did not have any to give. If you had not fought back, they would have kept going. You do not have to thank me, I said. I just did what I had to do. But that is exactly why we are thanking you. You showed us it is okay to say no to family when family is wrong. I received a letter a few weeks later. It was from my mother, sent through her lawyer to avoid violating the no-contact order. In it, she apologized. She explained that she had been terrified of my father for years, that the gambling and manipulation had started long ago, that she had lost herself trying to survive. I do not expect forgiveness, she wrote. I do not deserve it. But I want you to know that I am proud of the man you became, despite everything we did to you. You are stronger than all of us. I read the letter 3 times, then filed it away. Maybe someday I would respond. Maybe someday I would be ready to hear her apology. But not today. Today, I was focused on moving forward. The penthouse renovation was complete. I walked through the space, barely recognizing it from the disaster my family had created. Everything was new, clean, mine. I invited Bernard, Catherine, and Angela over for dinner to celebrate. We sat on the balcony, eating Thai food and drinking wine, talking about everything except the legal battle. You did it, Catherine said, raising her glass. You survived. More than that, Bernard added. You won. I shook my head. I do not know if anyone really wins in something like this. But I survived. That is enough. Angela looked at me thoughtfully. What did you learn from all this? I thought about it. I learned that people will show you who they are. And when they do, believe them. I learned that family is not a shield against accountability. Blood relation does not excuse toxic behavior. What else? I learned that standing up for yourself is not selfish. It is survival. And sometimes the people who truly love you are not the ones you were born to, but the ones who choose to stand beside you. We drank to that. Later, after everyone had left, I stood alone in my living room. The city lights glowed outside my windows. The space was quiet and peaceful. I thought about the slap that started everything. The moment my father's hand connected with my face in front of 30 people. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, like everything was falling apart. But it was actually the beginning of standing up, the beginning of demanding respect, the beginning of understanding that I did not owe anyone my success just because we shared DNA. If I had given in that night, handed over the keys to my penthouse, I would have lost more than property. I would have lost myself. I would have confirmed to my family that I was a resource to be exploited, not a person to be respected. By fighting back, I lost them. But I gained something more valuable. I gained my self-respect. I gained real friends. I gained the knowledge that I could survive anything. My phone buzzed. A text from a distant cousin I had not spoken to in years. I heard about everything that happened. I am so sorry. We are having a family gathering next month. A real one, without Richard and Linda and Chelsea. Would you come? We would love to see you. I smiled and typed back. I will be there. The penthouse was quiet. But it was mine. Truly, completely mine. No one could take it from me again. No one could use it against me. It was my sanctuary, earned through hard work and defended through courage. I poured myself a final drink and raised the glass to the empty room. To truth, I said. To justice. To standing up when it would be easier to give in. I drank and felt, for the first time in months, something close to peace. The war was over. I had survived. And that was enough. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who felt entitled to what you earned? Have you ever been in a situation where saying no felt impossible because of guilt and obligation? How did you handle it? If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and surviving family betrayal. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to set boundaries, even with family. And comment below with your own experiences. I read every single one, and your stories matter. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long, and I know it was painful. But sometimes we need to hear that other people have fought these battles and survived. Sometimes we need permission to put ourselves first. Whatever you are facing right now, whatever family pressure or guilt or manipulation you are dealing with, remember this. You do not owe anyone your peace. You do not owe anyone your success. You do not owe anyone your home, your money, or your dignity just because they are related to you. Stand up, fight back, survive, and on the other side, you will find that you are stronger than you ever knew. Take care of yourselves out there. Until next time.